Question 1. Area equals 1/2 AB sine C. 1/2 of 35 times 44 times the sine of 58 degrees. And the answer is 652.99, in fact 653 centimetres squared. Now we want to use the cosine rule here because we have two sides and the angle between the two sides. Hope you can see that. So a squared equals b squared plus c squared minus 2bc cos a. That's 300 squared plus 350 squared minus 2 times 300 times 350 times the cos of 12 degrees. So it's 90,000. One, two, two. It's 205, 401, that's in fact 411. Now this can all be done on the calculator at once, this whole line here, as long as you're careful. And we get 7089. Now remember this is a squared, so the last thing that we do is take the square root of our answer, and that gives us 84.2 meters. So question 3 now. What we want to do here is to calculate the bearing of W from U, which is to work out this angle here. What I'm going to do first of all is work out this missing angle, which I'll call X. Now I hope you can see we have a side angle pairing, and that means that we're going to use the sine rule. So A over sine A equals B over sine B, and 400 over sine 125 degrees equals 220 over sine X. What we'll now do is cross multiply because the unknown quantity is on the bottom line. That's an easy way of getting rid of both fractions. So 400 sine X is 220 times the sine of 125, and we'll divide by 400 to get sine X on its own. And the next step is sine to the minus 1. We always have to use the second function button, shift sine, and trying to find the angle in this particular problem. And the answer we get is 26.8 degrees. We want to give the answer to the nearest degree. Well, I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll leave it just now at that. Now, the desired angle then is 180 degrees minus 26.8 degrees. That gives us 153.2 degrees. We want to give the answer correct to the nearest whole degree, and that's 153 degrees, and that is the bearing. So what we want is 3u plus v. Well, if you look at the diagram, The components of EU are 2, 4. 2 along on the positive x and 4 up. Components of V are 3 along, 1 up. So let's see, we want 3 lots of 2 along 4. Let's start here. 2 along 4, there's 1. 2 along 4, there's 2. 2 along 4, there's 3. Then we want, so that gives us that's our vector 3u, and we really need to have an arrow on the diagram to indicate direction. And then we want to add on a single v, so that's 3 along 1 up from this point here. 3 along 1 up takes us to this point, so I'm just going to draw that freehand, the arrow indicating direction. There is the vector v there. Now what we want then is a single line like so, and that is the vector with, of course, the arrow indicating direction. That's the vector 3 lots of u plus v. So write down the coordinates of S. Well, this is something that we could do, I suppose, for a bit of practice. We know that, we'll just write down all the coordinates. So it's a square-based pyramid. The height is 8, which means this point here is 8. We know that the base is 6 by 6, so that's 6 and that's 6. It's a useful thing to be able to list down all the coordinates. So we know that the origin is 0, 0, 0. The point P, so that's 6 along in the x, 0 on the y, and 0 on the z. We already know about Q. Then we've got the point R. Now that's 0 in the x, 6 in the y, and 0 in the z. The last thing we have to do then is to get the coordinates of S. Now, can you see, let me just remove this information, that in order to get to S we have to start at the origin. We're going to move halfway along OP, which is, so that distance there is 3. Then we're going to move in to the centre of the bottom square, so that distance then is 3 as well. That wasn't very well done, 3. And then it's straight up, 8. So 3 on the x, 3 on the y, and 8 in the z direction. This question is nice and easy. We want to work out the resultant force. So the resultant force is found by adding the components of A and B and C together. So it's 5, 2 minus 2, 5, 2, 2.5, plus minus 3, 7, 5.5, plus 1.5, 6, and minus 2. So if we add the x components first, 5, take away 3 is 2, 2 plus 1.5 is 3.5. If we add the y components, 2 and 7, that's 9, 9 and 6 is 15. And then the z components, 2.5 and 5.5, that's 8. 8 take away 2 is 6. We don't need to do anything more. Put a bracket around it, that's us finished. Nice simple question here. 2p plus q is 2 lots of 5, 3, plus q, 1 minus 3. So that's 10, 6. And that is 10 plus 1 is 11, 6 take away 3 is 3. Now, what we want to do to work out the magnitude of the vector, 2p plus q, we square the 11, we square the 3 and add it to the 11 squared, and then we take the square root of the total. So it's 121 plus 9, square root of 130. And we can leave it like that. Question 8. So, if the value is falling by 12% per year, well, let's think about what the decimal multiplier is. We start off with 100%. We subtract 12% because the value is falling, it's decreasing. That gives us 88%. Now 88% as a decimal is 0.88. So that's the decimal multiplier that I'm going to use. We start off with a value of 24,000 multiplied by 0.88 to the power of 5, because we're interested in finding its value after 5 years, and that comes to 12665.57 pence. So we have a length which is 2 3/7, and we'll convert that into, well, 7 times 2 is 14, plus 3 is 17 over 7. We have a breadth which is 1 2/3. 3 times 1 is 3, plus 2 is 5, so that's 5 over 3. The area is length times breadth, so it's 17 over 7 times 5 over 3, multiply tops, multiply bottoms. 3 times 7 is 21, 50, and that's 85 over 21. Now, 21 divides into 85 3 times. No, it doesn't, it's 4 times. 4 times, and just 1 left over. And we should, of course, put in the units. So, a man invested some money. It's increased in value by 15%. Well, if you imagine the original amount of money, the money that was initially invested as 100%, and its value has increased by 15%, that means we've got 115%. Next thing to do then is to say that, well, 115% is equal to 2760. So what we'll do is we'll divide by 115 to get 1%, and then multiply by 100 to get 100%, which is the amount of money he initially invested. So 1% is £24, multiplied by 100 gives us £2,400. First thing to do is to work out the mean x bar. So we're going to add all these numbers together, so that's 14 plus plus the 17, and divide them by, well, I think we've got 7 numbers, that's correct. So we've got 105 over 7, which gives us a mean of 15. I'm going to calculate the standard deviation now. So x minus x bar and x minus x bar all squared. So what do we have? We've got 14, 17, 13, 14, 11, 19, and then 17. Now, what I'm going to do here is subtract the mean, so it's 14 minus 15, that's minus 1. 17 take away 15, that's 2. 13 take away 15 is minus 2. 14 take away 15, minus 1, and so on. Now we want to square each of these values. Be careful here. If you're going to use the calculator, put a bracket around the negative number and then square it. You can't have any negatives in this column. So 2 squared is 4, minus 2 squared is also 4, minus 1 squared is 1, minus 4 squared is 16, 4 squared is 16, and 2 squared is 4. We want a total here. 4 and 16 is 20, 36, 40, 44, 45, 46. Now this value here is sigma x minus x bar all squared. So the formula for the standard deviation, sigma x minus x bar all squared over n minus 1. We then take the square root of the total. This is the value n here, which is to say the number of pieces of data, and there are 7 of them. So it's 46 over 7 minus 1, square root the total, and we get 2.77. This is the data that we've got then. And what we can see is that on average, the cost of a meal is greater in a restaurant. Why can we say that? Because 22 is greater than 15. However, the variation in meal price costs is less in the restaurants. Than in the cafes. And the reason for that is because 2.2 is less than 2.77. You have a greater spread of prices in the cafes. Last question is a line of best fit question. What we want to do is to work out the equation of the line of best fit. It's important to see that this point here is, that's C, the y-intercept, and that has the value 27.5. Now there are 2 points through which the line definitely moves. This point here, that's 5 along, 25 up. And this second point here, that's 10 along, 22.5. So I'm going to use both of those points. To work out the gradient. So 5, 25, and 10, 22.5. We can let this be x1, y1, and x2, y2. The gradient formula, remember, is y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So 22.5 minus 25 over 10 minus 5 minus 2.5 over over 5, and that's minus a half. It shouldn't surprise us that the line is a negative gradient because it's sloping from top left to bottom right like that. The equation of the line then, Well, we can use the formula y equals mx plus c. Now we know that the gradient is minus 1/2. And we said at the very outset that the line cuts the y-axis at 27.5. The very last thing we have to do is to change the y to s and the x to h. That gets you the final mark for the equation. Be careful about that. So s is minus 1/2 h plus 27.5. The last part, the last thing that we have to do, estimate the mark in the spelling test if the people spent 25 hours watching television. So h is 25 and s then is minus 1/2 of 25 plus 27.5. So that's minus 12.5, and that gives us the answer, 15 marks.